Hello and welcome to HCS Weekly, your weekly destination for all things HCS. We got everything, guys. We got news, we got highlights, we've got drama, we've got behind the scenes personalities from everybody in Halo that you're excited about. And you might have noticed things are a little bit different this time around. Tsquared unfortunately couldn't make it. He has been replaced by a slightly less handsome individual, but I will do my best, guys, to carry the torch across. And today's episode is going to be great because we have HCS London. HCS London is just finished, and I get the good opportunity to talk to Wonderboy, who spent the entire time watching everything. He's seen everything possible because he's the observer. Let's bring Wonderboy on and see what he has to say.
Yo, Alex, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Just trying to find my way through that interview with him. Enough hype to kick things off here. But man, so how are you feeling? You just came off of HCS London. You were observing the matches. Are you experiencing HCS withdrawal? I know I popped into your stream earlier today. How are things going, man?
Things are going well, man. It's like you say, I've kind of experienced a little bit of HCS withdrawal right now. As soon as I got home, the first thing I did was hopped on Halo 5, fired up my stream, and started playing. My voice is surprisingly a little bit weak. I know I wasn't casting the whole weekend, but I always forget when I'm observing like how much communication actually goes into it, working with a secondary observer as well. So my voice a little bit fragile right now, especially with streaming earlier as well. But yeah, other than that, man, I'm good. I can't wait to talk about some Halo right now. I'm ready.
Okay, first though, you have to tell me more about this whole observing thing, because I'll be watching the tournament and I'm watching these POVs and all this crazy stuff is going down, and then all of a sudden you're switching it to a third-person perspective. I can see people running it in with the flag. I can see a top-down view of Refuge CTF, which is so sick. How are you doing this? What's happening? I guarantee you're not just like sitting on theater mode and making this work on the fly. You definitely have like a control panel going. Like, how does this work?
Yeah, so essentially, I always talk about it as I have the best seat in the house to watch Halo, because I have all 8 players' points of view in front of me. I have 4 from red team, 4 from blue team, and I essentially press buttons on a keypad to determine which point of view we go to. That's the simple version of it. I'm looking at a lot of different things, you know, in terms of who to jump on with and when, mainly the kill feed to make sure we catch the tail end of any sweet multi-kills. The other part of my job, the top-down views, the cinematic stuff that you guys see, is I'm actually working with a secondary observer as well, who is in the lobby in observer mode, but their main job is to fly around the map in free cam, capture the stuff in a third-person fly cam perspective, whether it be top-downs on Refuge, highlighting stuff like we saw me and Shyway, who was the observer with me in London, highlight the shotgun during a reciprocity list.
That was sitting there and nobody picked it up. Right.
Yeah, because Ogre 2 was like, haven't seen Shoddy in a while, it might be up. So I figured all I had to do was communicate to Shyway, like, hey, why don't we get a fly cam over in yard, see if the shotgun's up, see if it's there. So I then have another button on my panel which can cut to the observer Xbox's feed, which is what gets you guys all those cool kind of cinematic views and stuff. So it's a little complicated, I won't lie. I'm working every single series all weekend long, but the Gfinity production crew was so fun to work with. Those guys always know how to have a laugh. They put on a great show. So it didn't feel like work, to be honest with you. It was a little exhausting, but I got to see every single kill as it happened. So yeah, it's a fun job.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fun, but I can only imagine that's kind of crazy, though, especially with Halo 5. Like, it's so fast-paced, so you have no time. Like, I can only imagine the person with that observer camera is just constantly flying around thinking of the next location, and you guys got to, you know, communicate back and forth. So I'd say it's no surprise that you lost a bit of your voice in the process, but I'm glad you had a good time, man. Honestly, I wish that you were casting, and I know there's so many people who wish you were casting as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But let's try to dive in a little bit into the actual event itself, HCS London. I know I want to talk about grand finals. I'd love to also talk about just the venue, the experience being there, the audience. What's it like, you know, actually having an event in London instead of, you know, having to travel all the way over to NA?
We've had events in London in the past. Obviously, you know, they've put on
like this,
World Championship qualifiers, but of this scale, like you're saying, yeah, it was kind of surreal having worked so many events in that arena to see the best of the best there. They made it look like they were at home, to be honest with you. I mean, we've all seen the Gfinity arena. The stage is absolutely gorgeous. The lighting, the desks, everything is perfect. Yeah. To have a top level scene like that, have the top level gameplay to match, was it was just an amazing show to watch. Like in between games, I find myself just kind of leaning back, just like, this show is amazing.
Taking it all in.
I gotta observe some POVs right now. Hold on, I had no idea what was happening. So it was a surreal experience to have those guys over there. And what an event it was as well. So many upsets, so many crazy game fives, so many amazing series.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, I love your audience too. Just that warm up, like when the game starts, and like, oh, I don't know if you remember when they
what that was. The funny thing was that whole thing was happening. I have a story to tell about this, by the way. Yeah. The reason that they were making that noise is because in the Gfinity Arena, what you guys don't see is that there's a big projector screen that slowly kind of pans down from the ceiling.
Right.
They were making that noise because a couple of the games I was in charge of turning the projector screen on. It would slowly come down, but no video was shown on it because I didn't press the button on my board. Sometimes the guys in the audience had to watch the LED screens as opposed to the projector screen because I was focusing on the game instead of the projector. But that's why they were making that noise to see if the projector would come on. And luckily, that kind of noise reminded me to turn it on every time.
Yeah, I mean, that actually added to my experience as a viewer. I had no idea that was the thing, but it honestly seemed like a hype way to kick off the matches too. It just worked out. There was also one guy in the audience, like a Splice, I don't want to say like a Splice hater, but there was this one guy in the audience who every time Splice messed up versus Tox, he'd be like, ha-ha! Like he'd just yell, ha-ha, and it would come right through. And I'd be so shook if I was Splice in that instance where this guy's like Eco messed up a flag run and he just laughed at him out on the outside of the audience. But either way, let's talk about that grand finals a bit though, because that was insane. Like Splice was on a tear coming back through the losers bracket. They 4-0'd Tox, and we've seen it before. We've seen them 4-0 Tox twice in a row and destroy them. And that's kind of, to be honest, that's kind of what I expected after that first set. But things completely flipped around. What happened? You know, what was it that really tipped the scales?
This event was a real weird one for Splice, in my opinion, because when they played Reciprocity and they were 2-0 up, it was like, Splice just doing Splice things, they're back to their best. And then ever since after that, game 3 versus Reciprocity, they just kind of didn't really look themselves anymore. Like I was watching their POVs, and I'm so used to watching Stellar and Eco off stream. Like often we'll cut to one of them in the middle of a double kill or a triple kill, and so many of those impact plays that they usually bring to the board weren't being made. Especially Renegade, I think this event didn't play as well as that they potentially could have, but all was fine. You know, they made the losers bracket run, they defeated, you know, the teams that they needed to get to the grand finals, and it's like, hey, you're 4-0 Tox in the first best of 7. This is just Splice doing Splice things. And then similarly, it felt like they fell off again. It seemed like Renegade and Shotzi just weren't making those high octane plays that they usually do. And I take nothing away from Tox because they played fantastically in that second best of 7. But I think this is the first event we've really seen Frosty come back to that kind of superstar, game-changing level player, like we saw in that game 4 of the second best of 7 to close the whole thing out. I mean, we saw in the preview of this whole show, like the top 5 plays, the number 1 play was the final game, and it was just Frosty just hitting insane shots. Like we were talking about it before we came on air, and he was just hitting crazy stuff.
He created a montage on one map, basically. Like he got so many insane headshots. It was honestly like I was saying, it was mouse and keyboard level plays. I've never seen snipes so accurate and so quick like that. Even like Royal 2, Lethal pulled off a couple, but Frosty really stole the thunder at the end of that series. I know it was, you know, the whole team that collaborated and, you know, made that happen. It was interesting though. I agree with you that Splice on Saturday, and I know Splice has this, like they warm up as the days go by, and they're like Sunday Splice is like a totally different Splice. But Reciprocity beating Splice on Saturday, I actually kind of had hoped Reciprocity was going to win. Like they had so much momentum. I was really feeling Snipe Down Squad. I was, you know, thinking about the possibility of them making it the way through, and then it felt like, I guess, Tox beating them, they fell apart, and they just couldn't do the same thing with Splice anymore. I don't know if they were demotivated, their morale was shook, something like that. But Splice came back so much harder. And interesting about Renegade too. I recognize that as well. I feel like Renegade did all right. Shotzi didn't make as many standout plays as I remember Shotzi making. Frosty definitely, I think, took the spotlight at the very end for sure. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of different. areas there.
Yeah, in terms of the reciprocity result, beating Splice, in my opinion, I think that reverse sweep against Splice they got on the Saturday will do them heaps of good, because there's one thing that that squad was missing, and it was belief. And now that they have a belief that they can beat the Toxes, they can beat the Splices, albeit they only beat one of them this event, now they have that in their locker. Because think of previously, their last top 3 placing was in Columbus, and it just, to me, didn't seem like that squad had a belief that they could, go past that top 3 barrier. Again, they didn't this event, but now that they have that kind of best of 5 win against Splice, it's not a best of 7, but it's still a win in a tournament. The world champions, that's going to be a good feeling for them. Like, the belief is there now. They just need to kind of keep grinding out and make sure their tournament experience is building up. I think they're primed and ready to have a really big tournament, but it's just about whether or not they can get it done on the day.
That's actually a great point. So just basically reciprocity, they might have come in 3rd place, but they did kind of break a threshold, I guess, beating Splice. Like, now they know that they can take on anybody. And if they can use that, as a precedent for Atlanta, then hopefully that allows them to stay confident throughout the entire event, knowing that they're capable of taking out all of these teams when they're playing at their best. So that's actually a really good point. But as far as like Splice versus Tox, though, I remember in the interview following Splice versus Tox, Lethal, they put the mic on Lethal, and he said, in the first set, those weren't our game types. We don't like those game types. It's the second set where we had game types that we like, so then we bodied them. So I actually took a second to take a look at the first 2 sets, and let's see what you think as well. Because set 1 was Truth Flag, which Splice is amazing in Truth Flag. Pretty much any of the flag game types, they have locked down the flag game types. Plaza Slayer, Rig Strongholds, and Eden Oddball. Which Eden Oddball I feel like was the weird one because it's a new game type, and I personally feel like Splice is weaker in Eden Oddball, but they still made it through. And then on set 2, we had Plaza Strongholds, Kali Slayer, Fissure Oddball, and CTF Refuge. So do you think it was game types that kind of contributed? Because I know Fissure, Oddball, CTF Refuge are new maps and new game types, and Splice loves to talk about how they don't practice on these new ones. So I wonder if that was part of it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a bit of a reach, in my opinion. I see Rig Strongholds as one of Tox's best game types, and that was in set 1, like you said, the first best of 7, and they lost it. I think it was maybe a bit of a reach. The rest of those game types, maybe, for sure, but I know Rig Strongholds is one of the better decision-making game types for Tox, so surprised they lost that one, but you're right in saying the Truth Flag, Rig Slayer, those are both, in my opinion, Splice game types, so... game types 100% play a factor, but I feel like it was more Tox realizing that they had lost that first best of 7 4-0, and they realized they have a second bite of the cherry, so to speak. I'm not sure game types played that much of a role in it.
Yeah, I don't know. They definitely picked up the confidence. And I think one of the biggest things about Tox is they just have such an amazing shot. Like, if it's a speed battle, I feel like Splice has the advantage, but Tox is so good at adapting and having an amazing shot. There was this one instance, and I talked about it in my last video, and it was actually in a game that they lost. It was Truth Flag, but they had 3 players in red base. They had all their team committed in red base. They had no shell, no control over the maps. They didn't have a good opportunity to run the flag. And what they did instead was so smart. They decided to create a dilemma by tossing the flag out bottom mid and prioritizing slays and kind of turtling in the base for a bit until they had the slays that they needed to start to run the flag. So I feel like that's kind of where Tox has been, making waves, is kind of just making these smart, decisive plays that prioritize a good shot and patience, basically, that kind of allow them to make it through.
You almost feel like in previous events from watching Tox that they were trying to play Splice at their own game. Like, they were watching Splice just fly at people and play almost like a Money 2 style format, and it was working because no one really knew how to counter that. Whereas what made Tox an amazing team was the fact that they are so methodical. They know what they want to do. They want to, on Coliseum, for example, someone said this on Team Beyond, actually. They said, they play a standard brand of Halo. They get map control. They try and get Royal 2 in that cave position on Coliseum, for example. And they let him go to town. They just feed off of that, and then they can kind of be a bit more of a methodical kind of game plan style team. So it felt like in the build-up to Worlds, when Tox just couldn't get Splice's number, they were almost trying to play Splice at their own game. Like, they were trying to play too fast. But this event, they just went back to basics. They just had Frosty, on form, which is a massive plus to any team. And they were just playing a little bit more methodical and more planned.
Yeah. It definitely, I think so. Leading up to that last game, and I think the last game, it really was the Frosty game changer, because especially, and we saw in the end of that top 5 plays, that last play with the sniper was literally the game saver. Like, not saver, but that was the final flag cap. Like, his teammates had died, the flag was there, he had a sniper, and he got everybody he needed to get. He even picked up the flag and rallied it, kept it in the field to play. Like, that was insane. So I think Frosty playing at his best is like, he's got to be like #1 in the world. He's up there with Shotzzy. And then the fact that Tox were able to maintain. He's a total game changer. And then Tox maintaining their confidence throughout and prioritizing what they're good at, not playing Splice's game. So I agree, man. I think that they really pulled it out. Now, let's take a look at what happened to EU instead, because not to immediately laugh. Okay, so we had a lot of talk coming into this about this being on EU soil. You know, this is it. They're on their home turf. There's no jet lag. There's no, not that I want to say no excuses, but like, this is their biggest opportunity to make something happen here. And unfortunately, I'd say this was one of their lower showings. I remember the old Infused roster with, Jimbo, Kimbo, and the gang. Like, those guys had some high peaks at some points. I think they made it to a top 4 at one point, at least, in one of the previous tournaments. Maybe I'm wrong. But in this one, they didn't make it in the top 8, unfortunately. They're not listed on the top 8. What happened there?
Don't want to talk about it. No, honestly, right now, the European scene is in a strange way. Like, the top teams, it feels like no one really is the best roster possible right now. There's been some team changes that have gone down because of personality clashes, because of team changes, forced or otherwise, and it just doesn't seem like any. It seems like almost every single team could benefit from a roster swap. To talk about Lucid, honestly, to be honest with you, they lost game 5 to make it to top 8 against the LATAM team.
Was it Trifecta? Because I know they lost to Trifecta.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. It was Trifecta. It was Radiant who lost against the LATAM team, Berserker.
They lost to Berserker's the EU Slayer, by the way, because they beat Lucid last time too, right? So Berserker.
Here's the thing: like, people are sleeping on Berserker right now. I was very skeptical of them after an amazing New Orleans performance, making a team change, getting rid of Bullet, bringing in this guy Magico. That honestly, I'm going to be honest with. To be honest, like, I'm saying honest with you a lot, but like, honestly, I had no idea who Magico was coming into this event, and then he just comes in, plays solid, and they get that amazing top 8 placement. Considering basically cementing that team as a top 8 team in the world, and LATAM is a strong region. To be honest with you, EU has got to step up their game, and there are a lot of team changes that I personally would make if I was matchmaker in EU right now to improve some of the rosters, but. That's that's just my opinion. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. These guys are obviously teaming with each other, for a lot of considerations. There's pro points to take into consideration. There's like chemistry, all that kind of thing. Right. But just doesn't feel like any of the European teams right now know what the best roster is. It feels like they know what it is on paper, but not what it is in game. They just can't seem to get it going.
So I guess what you're saying is individually the talent is there, but building the roster that really clicks is the difficulty. And unfortunately, like I said about Infused, they had to split up, and these roster changes were relatively recent, I think. So they're still kind of adapting and getting used to everything. Whereas you have rosters like Tox and Splice that have now been formed for a very long time, and they continue to get more confident in their play. So I can only imagine how rough that is. On top of the fact they don't get to scrim them regularly, so you don't get that aspect as well.
Well, here's the thing: they lost by 1 kill in a game 5 against Trifecta, who placed up there as well. So different circumstances, some minute plays being made in that game 5 that play out differently. We see EU in the top 8 and Trifecta is top 12. So similarly, I believe Radiant lost their game 5 against Berserker Esports as well. So again, different plays happening in that series. Take nothing away from the 2 teams that advance, Trifecta and Berserker, but it's just small plays that just seem to come back to bite EU every single time. And it was the same with their chance for top 4 in Denver as well. They played against Liquid and they took a game. It's not like they rolled over 3-0, and Liquid were a really solid top 4 team at that event, but it just felt like they panicked when a team had a stranglehold on them. Instead of just giving up a capture, they would just try and make individual superstar plays. And it feels like certain players in Europe right now seem like they're trying to take the game and put it on their shoulders, whereas it doesn't seem like any of the top teams do that, bar Frosty in that last game of the best of 7 and want to win the whole thing.
That is interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with the size of the European scene too. It is comparatively smaller, so I feel like they have that almost that feeling to be the leaders in the community, to really take the scene on their shoulders, or the team, and to make these aggressive, insane plays to really stand out. But it is unfortunate that it worked out the way it did. But I believe you, man. I think that it is that, like, the talent is there. It's just a matter of getting the right roster and and the right kind of environment and practice to make things work. Right now, I know you were, of course, you're the observer, so you had an opportunity to watch everybody. Are there any like particular standouts, players that you found that really stood out? I know we were talking about Renegades, and you said that people said Penguin didn't play very well, but you thought otherwise.
Yeah, Penguin played amazing for Renegades this event. Honestly, he was probably one of the most surprising players to me, because in New Orleans, him and Miquin seemed like the two that I wanted to step up the most for them to push for that top 3 placing. I mean, I know they finished 3rd there, but felt like if they had gone on, they could have potentially, won against Tox. They could have won against Splice at that tournament and pushed on to the grand finals there. Mm-hmm. I think 4th place is tough for Renegades, considering how well Penguin and APG especially played. They were really, really solid. I know people didn't really get to see them a lot on stream, but I have the benefit of seeing all 8 POVs, and it seemed like every time I was watching Penguin's point of view, I wanted to switch to his point of view, and every time I did, he like died straight away. So I always had like the curse of the observer going on. But he was playing really solid Halo, putting a lot of damage down, was finishing kills, getting really key double kills in maps like Truth, which is not an easy map to get double kills on. It requires a lot of listening. It requires a lot of your teammates calling out to you and putting damage down. So Penguin played really well. And in terms of who disappointed on Renegades, I would say Neptune. I know we spoke about it a little bit before we came on air, but I feel like if Neptune plays the way that he did in New Orleans and events previous, Renegades, maybe they push on. Maybe they make that losers bracket run. I know they were only 2 kills away in a game 5 from being in that winners bracket final against Tox, and I was the only caster to predict Renegades to win that series. So you can imagine how cheesed off I was about that result.
It was close, man. You got close.
I was so close, and after that, I just have to keep going for Hail Marys, and none of them are coming off.
You got to be that one guy who stands out, dude.
Exactly, fine, man. Like,
even if I'm wrong, I remember who I am.
I'm trying to think of who else impressed, to be honest with you. Obviously, Frosty. I think Royal 2 played very well this event as well. Very used to him playing kind of slower.
Sorry, the one where he bounced off the wall. Okay, yeah, because I watched it and I thought it was just, Halo, what was it, Bullet Mag being kind of weird, because it looked like he hit Stellar, but it missed Stellar. If only I had some sort of a link that we could post to the viewers in the chat. You guys might know what I'm talking about. But it went past Stellar, bounced off a wall somewhere through Ring 2, and it killed Eco, like somewhere in some other end of the map. And you might have been able to actually capture that on the back end. What happened there? And that looked like a robot shot. That was insane. That shot that he
honestly, I didn't even know that had happened until people had told me afterwards. I remember the shot and I was like, how did he hit that? And then obviously someone told me afterwards that he bounced off like 5 different walls, and I was just like, okay, yeah, that's just
I would love to see what that was. Doing Royal 2 things.
He was playing really well this event, though. So used to seeing Royal 2 play a little bit slower than the rest of his team. I'm not, some people say that he baits the rest of Tox. I don't think that's the case. I just think he's just one of those slower type players. He's never going to be the first one in. But I saw that a lot this event. He was almost trying to be the catalyst for Tox Gaming, and obviously it worked out because it seemed to release Frosty to play really well. But Royal 2 is making some clutch kills as well. Snipe Down played really well on Reciprocity. I was disappointed what I saw out of Trippy. Because in New Orleans, he was one of the players that I tipped to have an amazing London. And come to London, he just wasn't stepping up as much as he was in New Orleans. So it's really weird how some players were having some amazing kind of turns of form in New Orleans, like Eco and Stellar, and then they come to London and it's like they look like different players. It's definitely a weird one. Yeah, no, there were some great plays from the Reciprocity squad. I don't know too much about Trippy's plays. Like I saw him do some good stuff with the sniper and like followed up with a quick draw. He didn't stand out to me as much as Saiyan stood out in some moments though too. Like Saiyan, there was one big play on Eden was Saiyan where he had the sniper and the casters thought it was Pistola. I'm not sure if there was a bit of a mix up there. And also what happened with the face cams, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a sec. But he had the sniper and he ran
outside blue on Eden, and he managed to get like almost outside the map. You know, you can kind of hide outside the rail, and he stayed alive for so long, still landing kills and rallying the sniper over. It was like crazy to watch. He was just tiptoeing on the side of the rail there, but yeah, some great plays from him as well. And yeah, like I was saying, what happened with the face cams? I want to connect with my players. I couldn't see that.
I wouldn't lie, I definitely missed the face cams too. If I remember correctly, I wasn't told why not at the event because I didn't ask. I was just there to, you know, press buttons. But I think Onset said on the Beyond forums there was a tech limitation as to why they didn't have face cams. So hopefully we'll see that back in New Orleans.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I think the event was super well run. I love the little additions they added in as well. Shout outs to Onset, who did a post-tournament match analysis. I wonder where he got that from. Not to throw. He did a great job though. He did a really good analysis too. But the hot ones, the little thing with the hot wings that they ate with Bravo and Strongside, that was kind of fun too. They're trying. G-Finity's been doing an amazing job with all the content.
While they were recording that piece, Strongside, I swear you guys don't see it on the feature, but his leg was bouncing up and down while after he had that hot sauce. He was having a real problem. Bravo was like, yeah, I want some more chicken. But Strongside afterwards looked like he was having an existential crisis. Like that man looked like he wanted his mummy, to be honest with you. He downed like a chicken afterwards.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, well, I mean, not other than that, but overall, Gfinity did a really great job just adding a lot of interesting content in between to kind of keep things going. And it was exciting, man. I love seeing that. I love seeing the gameplay analysis too. So I hope we get to see more of that in the near future. Speaking about the future, let's look forward a little bit because we got more big things coming up as far as HCS goes, as far as classic Halo goes as well. We've got HCS Atlanta. And one of the biggest talking points about this is the 2v2, the UGC 2v2. By the way, guys, we're running on the UGC channel right now. I love how you threw it up at the perfect time. Here we go. We got a 2v2 10K prize pool tournament for Halo 3. We're going back to 2008. Bring out your snipe down, your straight ripping. We're gonna make this work. It sounds awesome, man. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's amazing. I will always forever be an advocate of classic Halo. I always bring it up anytime possible, but my highest European placing back when I used to compete was on Halo 3. It was during the Halo 4 era, and most of the good players had retired by then, but we went back to Halo 3 for a throwback event, and I came third. I came top 3. I teamed with Jimbo, and I will tell anyone who will listen about that result. Yeah. But
guys,
2v2s are an interesting one. I never personally saw Halo 3 as kind of a game type where 2v2s really shined. But it's going to be interesting to see what kind of maps they choose, because I know maps like Construct, it's a pretty big map vertically, and from that there's a lot of hiding places which might lead to a lot of stale gameplay broadcast wise. But obviously then you have maps like Narrows, if you incorporate flag, could be quite interesting. So my initial thoughts are what the settings are going to be and how they're going to incorporate that in terms of tournament gameplay. But Halo 3 is a classic game. We all love it. That's what really sparked my love of competitive Halo is competing in Halo 3 and also watching the old MLG Halo 3 days, from 2008 through to 2010, 2011, that kind of era. That's what drove me to compete myself. So always happy for Halo 3 to come back.
Honestly, man, whatever gets a huge, passionate community of Halo fans together, all celebrating the same thing, that's all I want to see, man. If it's Halo 3 that's got to do it, it's Halo 3 that's got to do it. But I'm also a Halo 5 fan, as you guys know. But you weren't kidding about being good at Halo 3, guys. This is no lie. Wonderboy knows his stuff. And okay, this isn't the best example, let's say, but EGLX, we had the throwback gameplay, and you had to run Halo 3 throwback maps in Halo 5, and you were killing it. You were destroying Walshy. You were, taking out the whole team that we put
destroying
together.
Walshy's easy, man. Literally anyone can destroy Walshy, but we're talking about snipe down. We're talking about current pros like L-Town, Spartan.
Yeah, they were on there too. And you're doing a great job, man.
Yeah, they were doing okay. Their shots were okay, but mine's back on the throwback stuff.
Okay, maybe we'll see it. Maybe we'll see. We
got a 2v2 coming up. And I'm the best player in the game.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Now, what you were also saying though about 2v2s is kind of interesting. Is I feel like 4v4 is better for Halo 3 than than 2v2. I don't remember so much about 2v2. I did go back and I watched Tsquared's Fragging Like a Pro analysis video, one of them that he had on the 2v2 gameplay, and it was on Guardian, and it was basically just controlling the same area of the map, that one area with the overshield and the sniper, and just holding that with all the power weapons and just, you know, assaulting them as they try to push up on you. And it's cool, but I don't know if that would be as dynamic and interesting as like 4v4, where there's a lot more action, a lot more different things, you know, happening, as opposed to just controlling that one location. So yeah, like adding the flag objectives, I think that'll make things exciting if they do that. So
I think I understand the DreamHack Atlanta situation where you have a Halo 5 tournament already out there. The HCS wants to try and get as many people involved as possible and try and make use of as many stations as possible. How do you do that? Well, you take a 4v4 tournament, you cut it in half. You've only got two players per team, which means you can allocate twice as many stations, and you know, just the barrier to participation is reduced just that little bit. So instead of finding 3 friends, you just got to find 1, and then you just turn up and play. I do like the idea to run Halo 3 2v2s as an kind of putting your toe in the water in terms of what to do for later seasons. You know, they're going to be keeping an eye on how the stream numbers perform when Halo 3 is on stream, and, you know, how generally it is perceived. Because if those numbers go up, you know, if those streams, you know, gets more eyes on the stream when Halo 3 is on, well, guess what? That's going to attract more sponsors, because more eyes means more sponsors are going to want to be involved. And that's ultimately what the HCS wants to do. So if the 2v2 tournament turns out profitable in terms of stream numbers, then, you know, we're more than likely going to see Halo 3 next season. I mean, I don't work for the HCS, full disclosure. I'm you know, just I come in as a freelancer and I press buttons and I give you guys the points of view. But, you know, that's my point of view. I personally feel like if Halo 3 does well in Atlanta, then who knows what we'll see next season.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's not unheard of, the idea of having a game that did come out in 2007 and still be prominent today. I mean, I'm a huge Super Smash Brothers Melee fan, and it came out in 2001, and it's still killing it today, right? So it is possible. I'm curious to see how it goes. I'm open to it, but I am a little worried about how things are going to be balanced out, because, like, sure, it's nice to have a good audience for Halo 3, but I also like Halo 5, and I don't want that to just die the day that Halo 3 comes back. So how do you run both of these communities at the same time and have people, you know, support both sides and create something that's, you know, that's empowering?
So here's the problem that we have to remember as well for Halo 3 is that it doesn't have a spectator mode in MCC. And sure, live events is going to be fine broadcasting them if it's a 4v4 tournament and tournament format, excuse me. And that's you know, if that's going to be your flagship title, that's all well and good. But guess what? Without a spectator mode, you can't run stuff like online broadcasts, online cups. You can't broadcast your esport unless it's in a live event environment. So that's just one caveat to try and remember if the community were to go back to Halo 3. I'd love it and all, but to be honest with you, I'd be out of a job. Like I wouldn't be able to, you know, cast any of the online Halo stuff. I wouldn't be able to watch online Halo unless pros were streaming it. So there's definitely pros and cons to weigh up if it, you know, comes to going back to a different game. And that goes for any game as well, you know, whether it be Halo 3, whether it be Halo 2 Anniversary, any of the games in the Halo Master Chief Collection, none of them have spectator mode. So that's, that's a big problem.
So that is a limitation. Of course, at the big events, you can get the observer mode gig thing going on, but other than that, it might be hard to run, like you said, the online stuff. H2A, honestly, I thought was really great too. Just the limitation was the maps. Like, imagine if we had a full roster of maps for H2A. I honestly think that could have, you know, gone on longer than it did. But there are a lot of great Halo games here, so it's kind of tough to figure out what works. But hopefully they figure out something that holds us over for Halo Infinite, because you know, that's the big thing we're all waiting for, of course. And I think we pretty much wrapped up everything I wanted to cover. But the biggest thing is how do we get you casting? What do we do? How do we get Wonderboy casting, guys? Because I want Wonderboy casting. I want to be casting with you. I feel like we're both kind of in a similar position where we're trying to, you know, to get bigger roles in this community. I feel like you're so talented and you deserve that, and so many people agree with that. We just got to figure out how to, you know, create the link to get you in there.
Listen, man, I appreciate the support and stuff, but I want Shyway casting. Like, you know,
I'm working on it.
Yeah. I miss casting. I'm not gonna lie to you. If I had a choice, I would cast. But I was telling this to people after the Gfinity event. I miss casting, but as long as Halo looks good on the grand scheme of things, as long as, you know, I able to provide with the cool observer stuff that we're doing, a better show for Halo audiences worldwide, I'm happy to sacrifice my own ego, you know, for that to happen. You know, all I want is for Halo to succeed and look good on the grand scheme of things. If I get to fly around the world pressing buttons and watching all 8 POVs and having the best seat in the house, you know, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, as long as you're doing what you love, man, because I thought, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's not like, not that I want to bring ego into it, but it's just to be able to do what you love to do, man, to cast Halo that you love to play, and, you know, to be there and be surrounded by the energy of it all. So I think that's the ultimate objective. But yeah, even if you're just pressing the buttons, you're still there. I just think that we got to see more of you, man. Maybe not casting specifically, and that's why I had brought up this idea of analyzing gameplay, because it kind of fits itself in as content, you know, in between, as opposed to trying to interrupt like the casting schedule that they have. So maybe there's some way that you can be included in other types of content, or we can run some other types of things to allow everybody to have, you know, a spot to shine and to keep the event exciting throughout, man. We'll see.
Yeah, I think I struggled this season, to be honest with you, because there wasn't any 2Ks broadcasted for EU Halo. All the 2Ks that are broadcast are broadcast from the NRG studios in New York, and they're just for the North American 2Ks. And the season before, and every season before, this season was my first season not casting any online Halo, and it wasn't until, you know, the NA 2K started and I was watching the broadcast with Elamite and Golden Boy, and I was like, wait a second, there's something missing from my life. Like, I haven't casted Halo in, like, the last series I casted was in Columbus, and that was back in March. So we're talking like 6 months ago now. I miss it a lot. Given the opportunity, I would love to cast again, but it's like I said before, you know, getting you up there first, I think it's my main priority, because, you know, observing is the best seat in the house. Yeah, for sure, man. We need you next to the big screen doing live analysis and stuff.
Yeah, whatever I'm doing, even if I'm coming to Atlanta just to watch Atlanta, I feel like I need to be there. Like, you know, I don't want to be that guy, but I don't know if Atlanta's the last Halo 5 event. Like, I hope there's more big events, but like, we're getting to the end of the cycle here. I don't know how much time I have left to actually do something. So I really don't. Even if I'm just watching, man, I'll see what I can do. And I hope to see you there as well, man. I hope to see you more and more prominent, and I hope to see Halo getting bigger and stronger, so that we have more opportunities and more, you know, ways for everybody to shine in the spotlight here. But honestly, man, I think I've covered everything I wanted to. It was amazing talking to you. Do you have any like big shout outs, or anybody you want to shout out for the end of the stream here?
Shout out to my guy Shyway. He does some amazing gameplay analysis. Check out his Twitter, @TheShyway. 100%. You got to do that. Thanks to UGC for having me on board. Hashtag free T2, by the way. You can go to the UGC store and get this. This is such a comfortable shirt, and it looks amazing too.
Free T2, guys.
There you go, UGC. I got you guys a plug. Aren't you guys happy that I came on this show? Thanks to Gfinity for running such an amazing event the past weekend. They did amazing with the content. Thanks to Tashi and HCS for constantly having me on board, and hopefully, you know, we can continue that working relationship we have. And outside of that, you know, thanks for having me here. I'm just, you know, happy to talk about Halo anytime.
Yeah, man, anytime. Awesome to have you. Thank you so much for coming by. And I guess that wraps up things for today. Thank you guys for joining HCS Weekly. As you already know, this is our weekly update on everything happening in the HCS. You guys got your fill today. We'll be back next week, and it'll be Tsquared. Like I said, slightly more handsome. This guy, I'm sure he'll carry it over and make it work. But I'd be happy to come back, guys. If you need me, I'll be around. We'll do some more interviews. We'll talk about Halo Infinite, about anything Halo. I'm always around. I'll be breaking down gameplay, keeping things hot. I'll see you guys around. Have a good night.